welcome to the Northern Business Podcast, a regular discussion with people in the north of England who lead business, employ people and have new ideas to help our economy grow. The Northern Business Podcast is produced by Recognition PR, which serves scores of companies in different sectors across the country, some of which contribute to this podcast. We're sponsored by Virtue Motors plc, one of the top automotive retailers in the UK, with dealerships representing some of the world's most popular brands. I'm Graham Robb, and joining me in the studio today, I've Pamela Petty from Ebac, the manufacturing firm in County Durham. Down the line, we have Mike Clark from Dysart Developments and Mark Swift from the manufacturing organisation Make UK. Welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us. I tell you what, I'm going to start with you, Pamela, because you're here. A big open question. What is Ebac? What does it do?
We're a manufacturer in the northeast, 50 odd years old. We make dehumidifiers, this is our time of year now. Unlike most people, we love the cold and wet weather because people need us then to keep the homes dry. We make washing machines, we make water coolers, make air source heat pumps, and we've got a brand new solution on the dehumidifier range that helps landlords put dehumidifiers into tenants' homes in a permanent solution and lets them track what's happening with that, which is particularly in response to Ebab's law.
I'm going to drill into this in a minute because I think it's really interesting. We'll flash a picture on the screen soon as well. Mark, tell me about Make UK. I love it, by the way. It's a great manufacturers organisation.
That's kind of you, Graham. We're the representative body for manufacturing in the UK. We represent about 20,000 businesses employing around about a couple of million people, which is everybody from the household names everybody will have heard of right down through the SMEs in the supply chains. And we represent that sector to government, essentially, is what we do.
And you do it very effectively. Now, Mike Clark, you're not into manufacturing. Tell us about your business and how you built an area that used to be manufacturing.
Dysart Developments is a group of around about 13 companies. 7 of those are development organisations, building anything from houses through to offices and major retail outlets. Project Genesis, which is based in Consett, has focused for the last 30 years on the regeneration of Consett Steelworks site. Probably levering in about £300 million of private investment, creating around about 1,000 jobs locally and building around about 2,000 houses, along with various factories, employment centres, college, new town centre, and so on and so forth.
Well, a little later in our discussion, I want to hear a lot more about that and how it can be used as a almost template for redeveloping areas where there's been economic shock. Let's just start on manufacturing, though. Pamela, you do these great products, and you've got a manufacturing organisation that's making submissions to the government before the budget. What obstacles, I don't want to be negative, but what obstacles are there to you at the moment in your day-to-day business that come from the economy?
Access to finance to grow is, I think, one problem. And the hoops that you've got to jump through to be able to sort of demonstrate the things that you can do. High employment costs, we get hammered. Seemingly every budget, there's a little bit more taken away, which inevitably hurts the business and can prevent you from growing as well. We've got the same problem as everybody in terms of the increased costs in sort of electricity, gas, everything like that as well. It's very, very difficult to plan ahead. There's a lot of uncertainty as well. There are obstacles in our way to sort of know which route we take. We're going into products that are sort of in house building and social housing, and sort of understanding what's going to happen with the green agenda is. It's not an obstacle as such, but it does stop you from actually being able to make good long-term plans.
Now, the other thing, of course, is you didn't mention inflation, and inflation is real. It's not towering as it was a few years ago, but it's still a little bit higher than everyone would want. Are you finding in this economy you can put your prices up, or is it very price resistant?
It varies everywhere. I think because we have always had the principle that we're about developing products that add value. So in the long run, our products end up saving you money. Then we're able to put prices up. We've not put prices up for a couple of years actually.
So
So
we're absorbing some
we're
of this
absorbing
extra
the costs, and we're rethinking the way that we do things so that we can actually save costs and doing things a little bit more creatively. But it's really our key value is in terms of how we develop products is making sure that we're not on that spiral of taking cost out of product and value engineering, which generally means that the products deteriorate and don't last as long. We're very proud that people talk about dehumidifiers that have lasted for 20, 30 years, whereas, they buy cheaper brands and a couple of years and they're in the bin.
And Mark, this is a familiar story from lots of UK manufacturers, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in particular, energy. I mean, you look at the headline figures. We're twice as expensive as our European competitors. We're 4 times more expensive than the United States. I mean, we view it really as an existential threat for parts of our sector right now, which is why we're pressing so incredibly hard for the energy support scheme, which the government announced to great fanfare, I hasten to add, in the summer. Currently, it's due to only support 7,000 companies, and when you think we've got about 135,000 manufacturing businesses in the UK, that's pretty much a drop in the ocean. We're 6 months on now. The consultation was due to be published tomorrow. That won't see the light of day because we understand there's infighting amongst various government departments about who's going to pay for it, which is not ideal. We've already seen a pretty chaotic lead up to this budget as it goes anyway, really, with all the kite flying that's been going on. And that scheme is absolutely essential, which is why we're pressing for it to be expanded to all companies. And instead of being brought in 2027, which feels like a light years away at the moment, we want it bringing in with immediate effect and backdated to June this year when the consultation and the plans were first announced.
Well, that sounds like a very straightforward ask. It's true. I mean, people watching and listening in business will know, but people watching and listening who don't look at the bills in business, maybe they work in business, that things like the off-gem price cap doesn't actually apply to business, does it?
No. And also, as you say, there is a cost to this, which is why we commissioned some independent modelling with a company called Flint Global, very, very respected consultancy. And to give you an idea of the numbers, if it's expanded to all manufacturers, it would cost about £3 billion, which is clearly a fairly significant number, particularly with the fiscal position the government's in. But we've put forward what we feel are credible plans as to how you could raise pretty much an equivalent sum of money through changes that are coming through things like the emissions trading scheme. The price of carbon has gone up substantially since the spring. And there's also, without boring you with the detail, various energy reforms, which we feel could also raise pretty much an equivalent sum. So the cost to government would be pretty neutral, really, although it sounds on the face of it a rather large amount of money.
Now, to put the context into why this is needed, the G7, just the top industrialized countries in the world, all maybe have energy price issues, but ours is number one, the highest cost of energy, particularly electricity.
Yeah, and I mean there are various reasons, a lot of which are quite technical as to why our energy costs are so expensive. But you only have to look at the stories. I mean, at ExxonMobil yesterday, for example, in Fife in Scotland, we've seen large areas of the chemical industry disappear in the last few years. The steel sector, we've all watched what's happened to that over the last year. It is a peculiar phenomenon that the UK does have energy costs which are so much higher than our competitors, and we need to get those down as a matter of urgency. It's an absolute deal breaker for us.
Now, Pamela's business is into energy and heat, which we'll talk about from the point of view of the public in a minute. But before we move on to that, Mark, can I just ask you, is there any other ask you've put of the government before the budget?
Yeah, there are 3. Firstly, we want the charge from the growth and skills levy and the immigration skills charge, which is around about £2 billion a year at the moment, which is unspent. We want that ring fenced and put back into skills and training. We also want to see full expensing expanded to least machinery and equipment, which our surveys consistently show. And also we want to see business rates calculations changed so that they don't penalise green investments. So, for example, at the moment, if you cover the top of your facility with solar panels, you're actually penalised and your business rates increased because it's seen as increasing your capital value.
Absolutely.
And that's, that just seems crazy at a time when we're supposed to be encouraging green investments to make it penal.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of these things. First of all, Pamela, your business it's diversified nicely into this air source heat pump manufacturer, and there are not many UK manufacturers of air source heat pumps, are there?
No, there aren't. And that it's a bit odd, really, that for the green agenda, we're currently importing pretty much all of the air source heat pumps that we're installing everywhere. And I think that, it's interesting, all the points that we've raised there to actually take to government. But I think my biggest question for government is actually, do they want us to be a manufacturing nation? And it feels like they don't want us to be. They don't really do anything to actually positively encourage house builders to use British manufactured goods. Why isn't there an encouragement? Our air source heat pumps, I'm probably going to say they're better than anybody else's. They absolutely perform as well as everybody else's. So why isn't there encouragement from the government to actually incentivise house builders to put British made, not just air source heat pumps, but everything, showers, cookers, everything, anything that can go in a house that's made in Britain should be incentivised, because that puts money back in the coffers for the government in the long term as well.
Well, the government is actually spending money on incentives. I think it's £2,500 you can get, rather like when you had an electric car in the now as well, you can get a small grant towards it. You can get a £2,500 grant off the installation of an air source heat pump, can't you?
Yeah, there are several schemes. I think one of the problems with those schemes is that there just ends up being lots of layers in the whole supply chain. That means that neither the actual homeowner nor the manufacturer ends up benefiting from that. There's just kind of more money made in the middle of it all. And it tends to inflate the prices. PV systems, as soon as the feed-in tariffs reduce, the whole system's reduced in price as well.
Yeah. The subsidies can mask price differentials anyway. Yes.
Yeah.
The other question on this is that when they were building the wind farms, the Boris Johnson government agreed to a 60% local content requirement. So it was built. The wind farms were on Crown seabed. So the government said to the people building them, you have to use 60% of the materials from Britain. That has caused an investment surge on the East Coast. If they said there had to be a list of manufacturers that were approved because of local content, is that something?
Absolutely, that would be fantastic. I mean, I'm having conversations with our local MP and sort of local bodies that can champion policy change and things to try and get that done, because it just makes sense to do it. Why import things when we can make them as well as, if not better, than the goods coming in.
Do you think if this happened, Mark, I mean, taking a slightly more distant view, it sounds really great here in our studio chatting to a local manufacturer about this, but actually, would it put Britain at a disadvantage if we started to do these sort of non-trade barriers towards imported goods?
No, I mean, it's an interesting point as to how far gone in our culture we've gone as a sort of not anti-manufacturing nation, but not seen as critical to the future of our economy. And I think one of the things that COVID taught us was that national resilience and national security and the ability to make things here is absolutely critical. And I think part of the problem is, for a long time as a country, we've taken that taken it for granted. And it was fine to import things from the other side of the world, and it was fine to have your supply chain on the other side of the world because it was all just in time and everything worked. And then all of a sudden you get the energy price shock, you get COVID, and all of a sudden now it's just in case and not just in time. So yeah, I think it's a problem we've had for many, many years, but I think clearly now national resilience and security and making things here is absolutely critical.
Well, there we are. That's a really excellent argument for it. Now, Pamela, before we move on from you, we were talking at the beginning of the discussion about some of the innovations. Yes, air source heat pumps are relatively familiar, but you're doing other stuff with this technology. You're putting it in lofts. And you're also using dehumidifiers in a similar way. Talk us through it. We'll flash a screen on this bit of kit.
Yeah, so we last week actually won the House Builders Award for the best overall product. So we won best new product, and then we won best overall product, which was absolutely amazing, because it's a relatively new sector for us. So we've taken the air source heat pump, and instead of having it in a metal box in sort of the alley next to your house or in the back of the house, then we're actually taking it up into the loft space, so it frees up that garden space. So yeah, it's that.
And it pumps the heat around the house?
Yeah, it works exactly like
radiators?
It works exactly like a traditional air source heat pump. That sits outside of the house. Only this one sits inside. It kind of hangs in the roof trusses actually. So there's I don't know, maybe 20 centimeters of it sits proud of the roof. So it might look like you've got a PV tile or something like that on the roof with it. So the new house builders are absolutely excited about it, because putting an air source heat pump in a garden is not something that they want to do. Yeah. So and there's a drive actually for getting better utilisation in houses generally, that they're taking kind of what I would call a utility room and taking that up into the loft space as well. So the two do sit.
Yes, I was at my daughter's house in America this summer just gone, and she has a new house, and the utility room is next to the bathroom, which she said, I said, why is it here? She said, it makes sense, Dad. When do you take your clothes off and put them in the laundry basket? It avoids you having to take the laundry basket downstairs. Very sensible. Yeah. Now, one more innovation before we bring Mike in, because he's sat there waiting to talk, and that was the dehumidifier in the loft. Now, this is a retrofit kind of device that would help particularly older houses and maybe houses with damp and mold. Yeah,
so this is we've specifically designed it for landlords so that they've got the comfort of knowing that we can fit a dehumidifier. It's there, it's fixed in, it's not portable, and particularly in response for them to AWAB's law, where they've got a responsibility and a laid out timescale where they've got to respond to tenants complaining about damp and mold in a house. So the dehumidifier, we'd take the portable dehumidifier, put it into the loft, so it's permanently vented in, permanently drained in, and we've added a SIM card to the unit, which lets the landlord have sight of how the dehumidifier is performing, so he knows absolutely that it's nailing the problem. So they've been fitting PIV systems, I don't know how to say that, and they don't like them because they don't recirculate the warm air. They actually
tenants make it a little bit colder.
So tenants are switching them off. They don't like them because who wants to cool a house down in the middle of winter? So they work as a solution, but they're giving up warm air. So, but with the dehumidifier solution, you're not putting the warm air out of the house, so it keeps the house toasty. It makes it feel a bit warmer actually once you've dried it and the air comes back in. So yeah, we seem to have our two new products are in the loft, and don't know what else we can put up there, but yeah, there's a theme somewhere.
Thank you, Pamela. I'll come back to you towards the end. Now, Mike, let's change the subject a little bit. Heavy manufacturing in the north of England took a big turn for the worse in the 80s, and you were telling us about Concert. Everyone knows in the north what Concert was, a former steel town. Other people outside of the northeast might think it's the home of food from Meadosley Road. So tell us about your involvement, because it seems to have run through your total adult professional life, this project.
Just about. Well, previously I was chief executive of the local authority when Project Genesis, or shortly after Project Genesis, was introduced as a concept within Concert for the Steelworks. And at that point, after the steelworks closed in 1980, we were still suffering the impact of that. So 35% unemployment level, major issues with regard to deprivation, health, and so on and so forth. Lost 10,000 population, mainly young people from the area. And at that time, what we needed to do was find a way of utilising the land that used to be the steelworks site and using the benefit of that land to regenerate the area. And it's taken a long time to get to where we are, but the area is now totally different from what it was 30 years ago. We now have a fairly vibrant economy within Consett, bucked the trend to a certain extent over recent years. And we've done that by making the most of the development opportunities that the land gave us, and then recycling the profit from that development into further development of the land. So as I say, we've built around about 2,000 houses over that period of time in Consett. We've stimulated the local authority through development of retail and the service outlets. We've provided the opportunity for people like Dysart College to relocate and redone the town centre. But a lot of that is dependent on people like Mark and Pamela, because growth is a key for us. If the economy is healthy and the economy is growing, and it creates that market demand for our product, which is a building, whether that's a house, an office, a factory, or whatever it might be, then that creates jobs, and that and encourages people to spend their money locally within the community. So, what Mark and Pamela have been saying about encouraging the utilisation of locally manufactured products, of UK manufactured products, making sure procurement is fit for purpose when it comes to retaining that money and that investment within regional and national economy. I think all of that is much needed.
Now, Mike, I know that your development company has sites that you're looking at bringing housing and re-enlivenment to all over the northeast of England. Tell me why you think things are so slow in getting these projects to actual, not you personally, but all developers. The government has 1.5 million new house target for the time of its parliament, and just on the basis of the trends of the last year, it's nowhere near it. It's not going to get there. Why? What's causing everything to be so slow, and what's causing people to not get these spades in the ground?
I'm pleased you're extending this for another hour or so, Graham. I think there are some fundamentals there. As I say, we need growth within the economy to stimulate the demand and the market demand for new development. But the 1.5 million target was unrealistic. Because you can't actually start from zero and get to 1.5 million houses over a 5-year period. That's just never going to happen. But if there's uncertainty in the economy, if there's a rising spectre of unemployment, those sorts of issues are always going to impact on housing demand and the need for new housing from a market point of view. If the government believes it can invest in affordable housing, then that's a very, very big bill it would have to beat to actually stimulate the market through the provision of affordable housing. It's market demand which will actually drive that housing delivery. Costs have gone up over the period quite significantly, and if the market demand is not meeting the cost increase, then we have difficulty as development making a return which is going to stimulate investment in the economy. On top of that, we've got a planning system which is, in my view, not fit for purpose. A planning system that often works against development rather than in favour of development, and a general lack of acceptance amongst the community, who will all be consulted on major housing developments, about the need for that development in their area. And that's where a lot of planning applications actually fall foul. When you go out to local consultation, everybody might see the national picture, everybody might see the economic need and the housing need, but nobody wants those new houses to be built next to them because they don't think the infrastructure is available. I think it'll be a burden on local services and so on and so forth. So in order to get over that hurdle, there needs to be an approach by government and local government to make sure that local communities benefit in some way by or from that housing development.
And that's where you proved that point in Consett, because there are new facilities that have gone to Consett because the houses were there. You're getting new hospital there. You've got all sorts of, you've talked about the town centre. There's some nice shops that have come to Consett because it was re-enlivened. So it's not a sort of chicken and egg situation. You are proving that houses bring the investment.
Yeah, and that's why we changed that strategy in the late 1990s to ensure that house building would drive that economic improvement within concert, because it brings people to use services, it brings money spent in shops, and so it brings employers who have a better base, if you like, for employees and so on and so forth. There needs to be an approach which actually helps that cultural shift, if you like, towards localism.
We're going to have to wrap up in a minute, but I wanted to ask you another question, a little bit controversial, and just your opinion on this. My own daughter is moving house soon to her second house, and she's buying a house in County Durham, so it's not in a sort of, not in the leafy south of England or anything. And now she's got a reasonable amount to spend. But it's not over the top, but it's a reasonable amount. And the stamp duty for this second house, I was blown away. £13,000, because it's gone up since last year extraordinarily. I just was completely blown away.
Yeah.
It must be a deterrent. That's a drag anchor on the housing market.
Absolutely. Nationally, you can see that impact as well, because the offers that are made and the acceptance that are being received currently on second-hand housing is quite significantly down on what it was last year. I can't remember the figure, but it's something like £7,000 average below the asking price that people are accepting now, and part of that is because of stamp duty.
Yeah. The calculation is if you knock £10,000 off, you're actually knocking quite a bit of stamp duty, because it's at the top end there. All right, Mike, thank you for telling us about Concert and Dysart, because you're building bricks and mortar, but you're also building communities, and that's perfectly obvious. Best of luck persuading the government, Mark. Keep the manufacturer's end up, won't you? And Pamela, best of luck with these new innovative products. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, if you want to join us as a guest on the Northern Business Podcast, we're planning our 2026 series now. Do get in touch. Use LinkedIn or contact Recognition PR. You can find us on the internet. Thanks to our podcast producer, Alex Dryden, and also technical operator, Robin Campbell. Join us next time for the Northern Business Podcast.